Sometimes I think that parents get a bad rap these days. Sure, being a parent myself, there may be some personal biases that have helped to lead me to that conclusion, but I think that there's some truth to the idea. It's extremely challenging to raise children in our culture. In fact, I would say, and I have said before, it has never been more challenging to raise kids than it is right now. I mean that in a literal sense, that parenting is harder today than it ever was in the whole history of the human species. And I don't think that statement is hyperbole. Now, granted, life is easier today in a number of very important ways. If I was parenting 6 kids in the 1700s, for instance, the chance that all of them would make it to adulthood would be pretty slim. So for that extremely significant reason alone, I am happy to be living today rather than back then. But when it comes to the actual act of parenting, of trying to raise your children to be competent, well-adjusted, decent, functional, virtuous human beings in the world, we parents in the modern age have to navigate around certain enormous obstacles that did not exist until very recently. The biggest challenge is that while we're raising our children, civilization is decaying all around us. We live in a decadent, depraved, morally insane culture, one that actively wants to steal our kids' minds and souls and turn them into hollowed out husks of human beings. Now, of course, people have lived and parented in degenerate societies before. This, unfortunately, is a common experience in the history of human civilization. The difference now is that it's nearly impossible to escape the degeneracy. It's all around us. And homes today are filled with devices that become access points, places where our debased culture can reach in and grab a child and make him its prisoner. A child can be lost to the culture before he graduates elementary school. And he doesn't even need to leave his house. And when I say lost to the culture, I mean lost in ways previously unheard of. His entire sense of his own identity, his grasp on reality itself may be destroyed. So that's the unique challenge. It's the thing that no other generation of parent has really had to deal with, certainly not in the same way or to the same extent. So there is no roadmap for us. There's no how-to guide. The parenting wisdom passed down to the generations before us kind of runs off the tracks before it reaches us. And we're left out on our own to figure it out. This is why parents today deserve some grace, I believe. We're out here in the thick of it. We're in the trenches, doing our best. Cut us some slack. Well, some of us at least. Some of us are doing our best to raise our children to be decent people in spite of all of this. And some of us, on the other hand, are doing our best to make our children into the worst human beings the world has ever seen. And in some cases, we must admit, the hardest parenting environment has been met by the most insufferably awful parents of all time. And that's where our criticism should be pointed. Pointed, for example, at this woman. Her name is Arlie, and she has a TikTok account where she posts about and promotes her unique parenting style, a style that, as it turns out, is not nearly as unique as it should be. In fact, there are a lot of parents that parent basically like this. So here's one video that's gone viral this week. It now has nearly 2 million views, and more depressingly, it has almost 70,000 likes. The video shows various pictures and videos of her toddler son, along with captions explaining her parenting strategy. And I will read the captions as we watch it. Here's the video. It says, controversial ways we're raising our son. He has his own iPad. Screen time is not limited. He eats what he likes. He's never forced to eat something he doesn't like, and if there's nothing he likes, we go buy him something that he will eat. He's allowed to try and have candy, juice, soda, etc. We co-sleep and contact nap, whatever that is. If he wants something from the store, he will get it. He doesn't have a strict bedtime routine. He will not be made to do something he does not want to do. His feelings and boundaries are just as valid as ours. When he says no, it means no. There we go. Poor kid. All right, so no means no. Well, that's a problem for me because my kids say no to doing their chores, to going to bed, to brushing their teeth, to getting dressed in the morning, etc. Well, let me clarify. My kids absolutely would never say no to me when I tell them to do any of those things. They know that saying no to dad isn't going to fly. But if they thought they could get away with it, they would absolutely say no to all of those things. If no was an option on the menu, they would choose it for nearly every productive and healthy thing I tell them to do. That's because kids have an extremely limited ability to understand that there are benefits to doing something you don't want to do. The concept of delayed gratification is very difficult for a child to grasp. And at a certain age, they literally just don't get it at all. They don't understand the concept. It's impossible at a certain age. Now, that child there in the video, my daughter is not much older than him, and I have on many occasions, just for fun, asked her to explain why she doesn't want to do something that she says she doesn't want to do. Like, I'll ask her to do something, I'll tell her to do something, and she'll say she doesn't want to do it, and I'll say, well, why don't you want to do it? And the answer is almost always, because I don't want to. Which isn't her being disrespectful or defiant. She literally doesn't know why she doesn't want to do the thing or why she does want to do something. She doesn't understand her own feelings, certainly not well enough to articulate them. She may have a good reason for not wanting to do something, or she may have a bad reason, or she may have no reason. She can't figure that out. That's why she has two loving, intelligent parents to figure it out for her. Now, most of the parenting choices, if you can call them that you see in that video, if you can call them parenting choices anyway, that you see in the video are so over-the-top ridiculous that you would hope they'd require no further comment. Obviously, giving unlimited screen time to a toddler is deranged. You are guaranteeing that he will be hooked on screens and spend his entire childhood sitting around staring at a little box. That's what you're guaranteeing. It's not that it might turn out that way. It is 100% guaranteed to turn out that way. And letting a child eat whatever he wants, especially combined with the unlimited screen time, means that he will be morbidly obese well before he makes it to high school. Guaranteed. Giving him whatever he wants from the store means that he will be spoiled and materialistic. Again, it doesn't mean that he might turn out that way, but that he absolutely, with total certainty, will turn out that way. All of this, you would hope, is obvious. But if you look at the way many parents handle their kids these days, it would seem that these points are not so obvious. And whether parents are making all of these mistakes or not, or making them to this extreme degree or not, it's certainly the case that many struggle to understand one basic fact about raising children. And the fact is this: kids need structure, boundaries, routine, and guidance. They need all those things. And when I say they need those things, I mean they need them. They need them in the same way they need food and clothing and a roof over their heads. That doesn't mean that we should never give our children the ability to choose something, to actually have a choice, the ability to pick a path and walk down it. It means that their choices, especially when they're very young, should be extremely limited and controlled. And as they get older, you progressively expand their choices and you drop some of the limitations until they're adults, at which point, if you've done your job, they can go out into the world of limitless options and relative freedom, and they can make, hopefully, the right choices because they've been given the moral formation they need to make the right choices. Now, if you don't give your child structure, boundaries, routine, and guidance, then not only do they grow up to be terrible people due to a lack of moral intellectual formation, but they also grow up to be plagued with anxiety and uncertainty. We're told that childhood anxiety is on the rise. It's reached epidemic levels, we're told. That kids are so anxious. Well, that's not because there's some kind of mysterious mental illness going around. It's simply because many kids are growing up in environments without structure, without boundaries, without routine, and without guidance. This makes them uncertain, confused, flustered, overwhelmed, which is another way of saying anxious. The reason that kids ask a million questions every day is because they don't understand very much about the world, and this lack of understanding makes them uneasy. And they look to their parents to shine some light so that they can feel more confident and comfortable in the world. But what if all they hear from their parents is, I don't know, it's up to you. You make your own decisions, do whatever you want, be whoever you want to be. The world is your oyster. Well, this is not an empowering message for kids. It's not liberating. It's actually suffocating because it drowns them in unease and uncertainty. It leaves them lost and alone. Now, does that mean that we should take away our children's freedoms? Yes, in a certain sense, if by freedom you mean the ability to do whatever you want. But in another deeper sense, no, this is actually giving your child freedom. In fact, a childhood full of structure and rules and guidance is really the most freeing sort of childhood. I've used this analogy before, that if you've got a guy who's lost in the wilderness, and you want to free that guy, do you free him by taking away his compass and map so that no one's telling him what to do? Or do you free him by giving him a compass and a map? So the man may be out in a wide open space. He may be able to go wherever he wants. The essence of freedom, if by freedom we just mean doing whatever you want. But he's trapped because he doesn't know which way he should go or where any of the paths lead. And a person who comes along and eliminates most of those potential paths and tells him which direction to walk is limiting his environment and taking away options, but also at the same time freeing him. True human freedom is not simply being able to do anything you want, but it's understanding what you should do. You cannot really choose anyway unless you know what you're choosing and you know what the consequences are. And that's what parents are for. But some parents, too many, including the one on TikTok here, don't understand that basic fact. And those parents are today canceled. History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. That's why I'm so excited that Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free online courses in the most important and enduring subjects. You can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, the stories in the book of Genesis, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church with Hillsdale College's online courses, all available for free. That's right, they are free. I personally recommend you sign up for Marxism, Socialism, and Communism. This brand new online course is unlike anything Hillsdale's produced before. You'll explore how many ideas in American politics today are rooted in Marxism, and also how they differ from Marxist thought. It's vital that we take these ideas and historical figures seriously so we can see the injustice and evil inherent in them and are better equipped to defeat them. Start your free course, Marxism, Socialism, and Communism, today. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/Walsh to start. It's free, easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/Walsh to start, hillsdale.edu/Walsh. Well, you got to feel sorry for this generation of kids for many reasons, really, but especially because this is the first generation of children who will know what it's like to be raised by social media influencers. They're the first who will experience the trauma of having their childhood's mind for TikTok content. So take, for example, the 4-year-old daughter of TikTok influencer Kat Kelimani, whose social rejection by the neighborhood kids was immediately converted into content by mommy. Kat has made, somehow, headlines this week after issuing a, to use the New York Post phrase, heartfelt plea to other parents on the platform. The Post reports how a tearful and devastated mother witnessed her child being bullied and responded how any loving parent would, by leveraging the incident for internet clout. So here is the emotional video, which has garnered over 2 million views, by the way, which was totally not the point, I'm sure. It was not the point of getting views, but here it is.
Parent and have kids. I need your help. Why is parenting so hard? My daughter's 4. And has these little girls around her neighborhood who I thought she got along great with. Well, I looked out the window and I saw a couple of the girls putting their hands out like they didn't want to play with her. And so I walked over there and they were telling she's not allowed to play with them because they didn't want her to. She was devastated. She was crying and asking me why her friends don't like her and why she can't play with them. I didn't even know how to respond. I just said, everyone sometimes makes mistakes, and sometimes people aren't feeling the best, and then they treat other people not so nicely, and you can't control that. And when you are around people who are not so nice, it's just best to walk away because you can't control them. How do you handle situations like this with your children?
Well, not like that. She didn't know how to respond. She didn't know how. So instead, she took out her phone, shot a selfie video, then edited it, and put sad piano music in the background, and then posted it. And then started furiously responding to the supportive comments, all while her daughter, presumably, stood by sobbing, having now been ignored by both her friends and her mom. But it's the music which does it for me. That's what does it. It's that's what destroys any chance that this was like an authentic, I'm reaching out for help. You're taking the time to pick out the emotional music to go along with it. No. Now, of course, even apart from the clout chasing, the problem with the video is that it's histrionic and absurdly melodramatic. Look, it's really not a big deal at all when little kids tell other little kids that they don't want to play with them. That's how little kids are. They're quite fickle as a community, okay? 4-year-olds in particular are prone to just like casually stabbing each other in the back for no discernible reason. It's extremely common for kids that age to play together nicely for a while, only for one to suddenly run out of the room and snitch on the other, trying to get him in trouble based on real or imagined crimes. And the amazing thing, though, is that they can go right back to being friends after that. The betrayed child doesn't hold anything against his betrayer. He doesn't even look at the other kid and say, "What the hell, dude? I thought we were cool. What are you doing?" No, he knows the rules and he accepts them. They all accept tattletaling as inevitable. It's a custom among their people. They all understand this. And the same goes for incidents like what Kat witnessed. A child will want nothing to do with another child 1 minute, only to be pronouncing her a best friend the next. And in fact, girls don't grow out of that habit until like in their mid-70s. But the point is that kids experience hurt feelings, betrayals, rejections all the time. They'll be utterly devastated for 45 seconds and then they forget about it. And you can even shorten that 45-second period of sadness by giving them candy or a sticker or a Band-Aid. Kids love Band-Aids. You can heal almost any wound, physical or emotional, with a Band-Aid. And if it's a physical wound, the Band-Aid doesn't even have to be on the part of their body that has the wound. The other day, my daughter had a small cut on her hand, but insisted that we put a Band-Aid on her elbow. Again, these are the ways of childhood. We can never fully understand it, even though they were once our ways too. Does this mean that we should never take our children's emotions seriously? No, it just means that we shouldn't blow things out of proportion or create drama where it's not necessary. There's no need to make mountains out of molehills, and we especially should not be making TikTok videos out of them, because that is really the problem here. You know, the world has always had mothers who get far too emotional and upset about the most minor pains or difficulties their children suffer. I mean, every good mother has a tendency in that direction to one degree or another. That's why it's important to have both a mother and a father in the home. The mother has enough empathy to compensate for the father's occasional deficiencies in that regard, and the father has enough calmness and rationality to compensate in the other direction. That's the complementary nature of the sexes, saving the day yet again. But Kat's problem is really not an overabundance of empathy or emotion. Her problem, if anything, is the opposite. Her emotion is a performance for the camera. You know, she saw her daughter's sadness as a thing to be exploited, a piece of content for public consumption. She claims in the video that the incident just happened a moment ago, which means that almost immediately the thought occurred to her that the whole thing would make a good TikTok video. It's not natural to think that way. It shouldn't be anyway. It's not surprising, though, when this generation of parents, my generation, views moments in life, or really all of life itself, through this lens. Many of us have been conditioned to put all of ourselves out there for viewing, making spectacle of even the most banal moments and experiences. But not everything needs to be presented to the public in this manner. And I say that as somebody whose job necessitates talking into a camera for over an hour every day. One of the reasons why we should retain some semblance of a private life for ourselves, and especially for our children, is that the internet is not a good substitute for a trusted confidant or counselor. If you really feel that you need to vent your frustrations, or you need a shoulder to cry on, or you need some wisdom and guidance, the comment section of TikTok is by far and away the absolute worst place to turn. Faceless strangers who are scrolling social media looking for content to distract them from their own personal lives are not suited for any of the roles I just listed. They also don't know you or care about you, and they will have forgotten about what you posted 5 seconds after they see it. But the bigger problem is that when you get into the habit of packaging your life into these bite-sized videos and social media posts and offering them up as pieces of entertainment for strangers, who will then in return give you a rating through likes and shares, which you will obsessively track and count. When you do all that, and you do it every day for years, as so many people do, after a while you begin to lose the ability to live your life as a normal human being. You forfeit your humanity to a large extent. You begin to think about all of your experiences in terms of how many likes they can get. You start engineering things in your life so that they'll be better fodder for an influencer post. You live your life with your back turned to it, looking at it through your phone with your face in the foreground and everything else blurred into the background. We now have multiple generations of Americans who live this way, constantly sacrificing authenticity for the sake of making content until they no longer know how to live authentically. So Kat Kalamani is far from alone, but she is the one who is today, unfortunately, canceled.